Good evening and welcome to Coach World TV. My name is Terry Yoffe, and tonight as my guest I have Suzanne Young. Hi Suzanne.
Hi Terry.
So happy to have you on the show tonight. Before I introduce Suzanne, I was just making a comment and telling her today is 4/14/14, which I thought was pretty interesting and observant. So I thought I would just pass that along in case you didn't know that. We won't get 4/14/14 again. Suzanne is the founder of FTS Strategics, LLC, where she utilizes her unique blend of business experience, technology, management, and organizational development to cultivate leaders and advance corporate efficiencies through her coaching and consulting work. Whoa, that was a mouthful. So what we hear is Suzanne will certainly tell us about her background. She worked at McKinsey Consulting Company. She worked in technology and organizational development and on to coaching. So kind of tell us about that and how you kind of have wrapped that into one lovely package with a ribbon on top.
Well, that's how you get the mouthful in my intro, because I've worked in corporate for many, many years. Yeah. And I was in IT with McKinsey and Company as one of their global project managers. And I started doing more and more professional development work and organizational development work. We did, because McKinsey works in teams, we do a lot of work with MBTI. Basically helping.
What that is?
MBTI is Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. It is a personality assessment, and we utilize it a lot in teamwork, communications, helping someone gain self-awareness in how they take in information, make decisions upon the information they have, prefer to live their lifestyle, and where they get their energy from, whether it's external sources or internal reflection. And so it was one of the tools we used a lot, and I got certified to use it at McKinsey and started helping facilitate workshops around that with our professional development group. And also got very involved in a mentoring program that we had, facilitated training for the mentors and mentees, was a very active mentor myself. And
At McKinsey?
At McKinsey.
How'd that go? Did that work out well?
It did work out well. There was one year, and we did not recommend this, but we stated managers could mentor 2 to 3 people, but not more, because this was something you did on the side. It was not your day job.
Right.
I took on 7 mentees in 1 year.
Oh my. How ambitious. I bet you didn't know what you were getting into.
No, it was a very busy year.
Seems like a good idea at the moment.
Exactly. Some people came to me, well, really, they all came to me. I had a couple, and then I had a number of other people come to me and ask me to be their mentor. So I was very ambitious, 1 year and 1 year only, and had 7 of them. I'm very happy to say 4 of them got promoted at the end of the year, which I was very proud of, but I do admit it was a busy year, and I drove them crazy. Mentees normally drive the relationship, but in that instance, I, as the mentor, did a lot of driving to really keep them together and get them on the track they wanted to be.
Yes, at dinner, Suzanne and I were talking about mentoring, and I also belong to another organization called AWNI, Advertising Women of New York, because that's where I come out of, that whole industry. And I was one of the co-founders of their mentoring program in '97, and now I chair the program, and I have a committee. So it's a lot to talk about on mentoring.
And mentoring, we just had, I'm also the president of the Organizational Development Network of New York, and we completely revamped our mentoring program and just relaunched it this season and did a full day training last Saturday, which was our inaugural training for mentors and mentees. It went really well and was really well received. Yeah.
That's interesting. HR New York has a mentoring program. I actually was one of their co-founders of their mentoring program.
Great.
A couple of years ago they asked me to do that.
So we have a lot of mentoring in
common. I know, we do. So you did all this at McKinsey, and from there you went to
I got into coaching and consulting because I was bored with IT, so I already knew I wanted to do more organizational development work and professional development. My degree is in organizational behavior and communications. Towards the end, I was thinking, what do I want to do next? Because at McKinsey, you do get a lot of opportunities to move
absolutely.
around. And my plan was to change roles internally within the company. What happened was, as with any company, we started doing layoffs, and they started laying off their project managers after they were done outsourcing application development, and I got caught in one of those layoffs.
Right.
And after that, I went back to NYU and got an executive and organizational coaching certification and a certification in adult career planning and development, and have been doing change management consulting, IT consulting, and coaching ever since.
And how long has that been?
That has been since 2006.
Okay. So you really made a few segues here.
Definitely made some segues, and believe it or not, there was a whole career prior to IT even.
Okay. So, you know, we talked about one assessment that you use, MBTI, and you and I at dinner talked about another one that CVITM, which is Core Values
Core Values Index.
Index. Okay. So tell us a little bit about that before we get into the whole seventh prism
Sure.
approach.
I like to use assessments in my work, but I'm very particular with what assessments I use. And MBTI, I think, is a great personality assessment, and it's very proven, has been around for a long time. So definitely utilize that a lot in training and workshops and with private clients. CVI, I started working with Core Values Index about 2 years ago. And one of the things I like so much about it, it's not personality based, it's values based. So it goes below the personality and it gets to really what does someone value. And it's one of 4 values. If they're what we refer to as an innovator, they value wisdom. If it's a merchant, as we call them, they value love and relationships.
So a merchant meaning what?
A merchant meaning they're driven by preserving relationships and seeing the vision of where relationships can go.
Okay.
And a third is called a builder, and they value power. They really know what to do next and are personally confident and they know what to do next to move an action forward or get things done. I like to refer to them as our doers. And then the fourth one is a banker, which they value knowledge. So they're the people who really love to research facts and statistics and have the background information and knowledge behind something. And we each have a blend of all 4 of these values, but they're all at a different level. So we're all unique. And I forget the statistical number because it's not even one I know how to pronounce. There are so many zeros after it, to be honest. Because nobody tests out the same, because this is so unique. And it's very interesting for me because when I got involved with it, one of the things I like about it, it took me 8 minutes to take this assessment. And I'm sure you've taken lots of assessments. Generally, they're 15, 20 minutes, and some of them are an hour or longer. This one took 8 minutes and so accurately described me, and with every client I've worked with, they've found the same thing. I'm what they call a profound innovator. So I am always assessing and solving, and I value wisdom. So things are based upon my experience and my intuition of knowing what to do.
Well, it's very interesting. And again, we were talking about values at dinner. And I took another coaching training called CTI, Coaches Training Institute. And one of their courses, that's multi-courses, was called Fulfillment. And with Fulfillment came core values. A little bit different. It wasn't, but what do people, how are people in their core?
Exactly.
Meaning, we all have labels put on us. What we do, what we make, how we're related, and all of that, which is what can be taken away from us. However, when you look at core values,
Exactly.
it's the value that we place on ourselves, whether it's integrity or honesty or truthfulness or trust, or what's inherently your foundation.
Yeah. That's
You
what's
know,
important to
right,
us.
exactly.
What do we really value
Right.
and find of the utmost
Right.
importance?
So even though it's different, it's got some similarities to
Exactly.
it. And so one of the things we talked about, and was alignment. How do these core values, when you look at them being in alignment with where you work or people you're involved with, how does that show up? How?
And that's very interesting. And one of the reasons, Lynn Taylor is the gentleman who created this assessment, and he's got years of research behind it. And it's very mathematically based, which is interesting. His entire premise is getting the right people in the right seat. So it's really in aligning what you value with what you're doing.
Right.
So
Okay.
for someone like me, as an innovator primarily, because we all have a primary and secondary, I love assessing and solving. I love problem solving. And when you look at the jobs I've enjoyed most that I've been in alignment with, it's change management, which I still consult on. It's crisis management. It's all those things where I have a problem and I get to solve it.
Okay. So, innovator, what would be your secondary? Builder?
My secondary is builder. Truthfully, I only have a little builder, so I do have trouble getting things done because I get stuck in the assessing and problem, and I will keep coming up with solutions. I can come up with a million solutions to anything.
Okay. Okay.
So I
wonder
need
what I
to
would
do
be.
more builder.
That would be
well,
interesting.
we'll have to
I
give
would
you a
love
CVI.
To. Maybe innovator. I really love wisdom, but definitely builder. I'm very action-oriented, getting
Yes.
things done.
My husband's a builder. I'm the creative, and he's the get it done.
Okay. Well, that's okay.
Works well.
That's great. Interesting. So there's so many assessment tools
Yes.
that we'll stay with coaches and consultants. So that's what we're here talking
Exactly.
about. And I think all of them have their place. It depends what you gravitate towards.
Exactly.
I trained in DISC, D-I-S-C, and I love that.
Yes.
Love it. And when I ask clients to do the DISC assessment, it's not a test, they take it, and I had one new client take it very cynical, say, oh yeah, right. He came to our meeting and he said, my mouth dropped open.
Isn't
I
it
could
fun?
not believe how accurate this assessment profile was. Everybody. I don't think there's ever been a person that has thrown it in my face and said, hogwash. Everyone has said, oh my God, so right on.
And those are the reactions I get with the CVI. I've heard of DISC, but I haven't done it, and I don't have experience in that one. But I get those reactions with CVI, and it's
that's
always
great.
fun as a coach to watch the reactions when someone does something like that, particularly when they're cynical. It's fun because they
Right.
think that
Right.
an assessment will not give insight into
Right.
who they are.
Right.
And it often does and brings it to a deeper level, which really empowers them.
And they come a little disturbed by what they're reading because they, oh my God, I don't want to admit that is me.
I had one executive client, it was really funny because initial reaction, he argued, this can't be right, this can't be right, and reading again, well, maybe I do a little bit of that, and no, yeah, well, I probably do a little bit. I did that last week, and it ended up
Right.
going full circle to, wow, this really is accurate.
Yeah.
And
They
it's
don't want
so
to
funny.
admit it.
Exactly.
It is. It's very interesting, and that's very interesting. I did take the MBTI. I'm not trained in it, but I did do it a long time ago. Be interesting to see what it comes back with today. But I love that CVI. Very interesting.
It's very you get a lot more information out of it than anybody expects to get out of it also, particularly for an assessment that is so short in time to take.
Right, right. And then, you know, when you use innovator, merchant, builder, banker, there's just so many places you could go with it,
Exactly.
you know, and look at.
I use it a lot
as-
with career transition clients when they're trying to figure out what they want to do next.
Right.
Because there literally are exercises that we can take them through using the CVI as a basis, which helps them then figure out what types of roles are available to them that really aligns with what they value and enjoy doing.
Right.
Because as
Absolutely.
we know as coaches, when someone is doing something aligned with their values and they enjoy doing it, it's the proverbial love what you
Exactly.
do and it's not really work.
Right, exactly. What's your passion? You know. So one of the areas I think we talked about very briefly was the 7th prism approach
Yes.
to coaching the whole person.
Yes.
So give us the scoop.
Okay. The scoop, and I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
This was developed by Dr. Neil Yeager. And Neil and I met 20 years ago when I was at McKinsey. Very different circumstance. Neil was a consultant who was brought in to do training with various teams throughout IT at McKinsey. He is also the person who developed the framework for our mentorship program. And out of his work, over the years, he has created this model, and he's been doing this work for 20 to 30 years. He's a coach, he's a consultant, and he and I got back in touch last year after not speaking or seeing each other since our McKinsey days. And it was interesting because I was a student in his classes back at McKinsey,
right.
and now I'm calling him as a colleague because
Well,
I'm now also a coach and consultant, which was fun. So we've completely reconnected, and I've gotten to go through his newer work. And I love this model because one of the things that Neil and I found in reconnecting is we're in total alignment with our coaching principle and how we approach our clients. We believe in coaching our clients as a full person.
Of course.
And particularly when you're doing executive and organizational coaching, as he and I do, people expect you to just coach on the organization or their
job
team
or
or
their work.
making them more productive or
exactly.
fixing the issues. And you have to address an entire person. If somebody's coming to work and they're dealing with an elderly parent or a sick child at home, they're not going to leave that at the door when they walk through the door at work.
Exactly.
So you have to approach everybody as a whole person, which I know you do also.
Oh, yeah. It's, you know, you're working with the external and the
Yes.
internal together. The,
Yes.
the external is the business, which is inanimate object. It's that. It's
Exactly.
the business. It's what you bring to the business that makes you successful in what you produce.
Yes.
Right. So the whole person, the inner and the outer. I'm assuming that's exactly what you're talking
well,
about.
what's interesting is we always used to talk about work-life balance.
Right.
The reality these days, there is no balance. It's integration. And
interesting.
technology has driven that to such an extent, which I won't even go on the, we could go
Right.
on the technology
yeah,
side, and I
right,
can give you an
right.
earful on that.
Well, we have 10
But
minutes.
exactly.
so-
So basically what he did is he's come up with this framework of 7 prisms. And I will show a quick
Oh, isn't
overview
this
of it because
great?
I think the visual helps a
wonderful.
lot. So we basically have 6, he's broken it out into 6 prisms, and the 7th prism is the center prism, and that's the integration of all the prisms. And the 6 prisms are work, relationships, spirit, wellness, context, and possessions. And then within each of those, there's 6 subcategories. So, for example, I'll take wellness.
Okay.
And that's one I'll be talking about Wednesday evening.
Okay, so while you're on that subject, I'm just going to say that we are very fortunate at our ICF NYC member meeting on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. You can go to our website, www.icfnyc.org, and look at and sign up and register for our Wednesday night meeting where Suzanne Young and Dr. Neil Yeager will be talking on this very subject of the seventh prism approach to coaching. So, thank you for the segue.
Absolutely. So wellness is broken out into aging. How are you dealing with your aging? Which I admit I'm struggling with a little these days. Medication and supplements. What do you take to help support yourself? Fitness and exercise. What are you doing to help keep your strength and vitality? Your food. What are you putting in your body to support you, to fuel you? Your ethics and values, which some people may think is interesting in wellness, but when you think about it, if you're out of alignment with your values, as we were just talking about, it often ends up resulting in us not feeling well.
Right, absolutely.
And then psychology, emotions. How is your emotional health? Are you struggling with certain things? And through the prisms, this is, and we were talking at dinner about the wheel of life.
Right, I was just
which
going
some
to say
coaches
that.
use.
Yeah, I actually used it for a while and thought it was okay, but it
Right.
didn't really give me great value with clients, so I've kind of done away with it.
And I
it
found
just
the same
wasn't
thing.
that spectacular.
And I found the same thing. This is
more
beyond
in-depth,
that,
right.
because this gives you a really full framework to look at every aspect of your life and to evaluate, where am I in this? What is working well that I want to basically maintain? What is an area I'd like to transform, and then figure out a plan to do that, and then you go into the action planning and coaching. And, you know, what do I just want to maintain?
Right.
And so this gives you that framework to really evaluate all those areas of your life and how they come together, because it's in the integration of them that's really your life.
Right, right, right.
And if any of them are out of balance, it's going to impact you.
Exactly. So any one of them that's out of kilter affects everything else.
Yes.
So it's,
And that's
you
where
know,
it comes to the
right.
whole person coaching, because we're
right.
looking at the entire person.
Right. So if your wellness is out of balance, that's going to affect your work, your
Exactly.
relationships, your spirit,
Yes.
and context, possessions. That's what you have, I assume.
Yes.
That's
Possessions are a number
material.
of material things. Like objects of identity. You know, there's always things that we
Right.
identify
Right.
with.
Exactly.
You know, toys.
Right.
What kind of toys do you like? For me, toys would be gadgets. Coming out of the technology world, I
and
still
my
love
husband.
gadgets. So my toys are gadgets.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. And context is
Context is
how
basically
you live your life in a way.
context is the places in which you live your life. So one context would be your work. Another one would be, where do you like to vacation? What really
Okay.
feeds you to recharge you? Your primary location, where do you live? How does your home support who you are? Community, who's around you? Who is there to
Interesting.
support you?
Very interesting, actually. And you have another piece of paper. Is that
That's the Taylor protocols. So the 4 values of the CVI that I spoke
Oh,
of.
that's something different.
Right, that's
Okay.
something different.
Okay.
So that's the
Okay.
CVI. Those are
Okay.
the 4
Oh, I don't wanna-
quadrants and
okay,
how
I
that,
don't
yeah.
wanna
So we don't want to
it.
confuse
No,
everybody.
No. So this is very interesting. I love that. And if somebody were interested, how do they, how could somebody learn this approach?
There are a number of ways.
If that's the
First
right way
of
to
all-
say it.
Yes. There's a number of things. First of all, Neil does workshops and courses on this, and
Really?
I'm starting to co-facilitate those
Great.
with him because we're strategic partners. He's got a book. We do this as leadership and executive retreats. Neil has a farm in Massachusetts that has an executive retreat center, which
Wow.
is very renewing because you're on a farm, you're out in the country. And when you do the full program, there is a workbook that takes you through going through all of these prisms,
okay.
going through a change plan on what you might want to transform. There's a card sort, which I love. Personally, I don't know, do you use card sorts at all sometimes in your coaching?
Card sorts meaning?
Sometimes they have them for values. This one,
Oh,
we
oh,
have a
okay,
card
yes.
sort, and you can categorize them. And
Actually, Points of View has cards.
yes,
Right.
I find card sorts fun, and I find
I-
clients enjoy them because they're more interactive.
Interesting. I have it. I wanted to do it, and so I have the cards, I have the book. And what I was doing for a while, and I wanted to get back to, is every day I picked up a card and looked at what it talked about.
Yes.
Clarity or focus or balance. And then went to the book, and I'd look up what that meant and try to keep that as my focus for the day.
And it's interesting because sometimes in our coaching, that is how we use the cards. For instance, one of Neil's clients, we were just talking about this last week, so it's top of mind for me. He had a client he was working with, and she wanted to get her finances a little more in alignment, and she found herself doing more shopping and spending. So he had her take the money card out of the deck and put it in her wallet in front of her credit card. So every
Now
time
that
she'd go
would
in her
be-
credit to get her credit card, she would be reminded
Not to
of,
spend the money.
I want to
Right,
transform
right.
the area
Oh,
of
wow.
money for me.
Right.
So
Oh,
that
that's
is another way you
interesting.
can use the
Yeah.
cards.
So how can people, if they're interested, our guests, how can they find out about this? Where can
Go
they go?
to the Seventh Prism website. It's www.the7thprism.com. And there's information on all of the workshops, leadership programs, the Seventh Prism, the farm, and all the contact information there.
Gosh, that's really interesting, actually. It really piques my
It's
attention
so-
to take maybe one of his workshops.
Yes, it's fun. It's fun. I personally use this framework myself, and maybe once a year we'll reevaluate because this changes constantly
sure,
as things in our life
absolutely.
change.
You know, I love the word that you use. We're going to have to start kind of ramping down. But I love the whole integration. I love that word.
Yes.
You know, it really, it talks to me. It really
Yes.
does, because you are out of alignment if all of these are not integrated together as
Exactly.
a well-oiled piece of machinery
Yes.
that makes you probably at your personal best.
Exactly. And I think corporations are starting to come around to that. One of my corporate clients, he was meeting with his director 2 weeks ago, and she also said it's not about work-life balance anymore, it's integration.
It's
so I
so
think some
interesting.
companies are starting
We're
to
going to
use
have
that
to
too. No problem.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I'm
This
so
has been
sorry I could have
fun.
kept going. Thank you
That's fine.
so much for being here, and hope you'll see us.